Aidan, if
Yes.
I said to you,
I'm excited.
I know you are, but if I said a question like, who was the one person that's changed your career in magic, in business, or maybe just changed your life in general? I suppose all the magicians right now will be thinking, oh, is it, I suppose, Colin Cloud? He's good. Oh, is it Darren Brown? David Copperfield? And everyone will be thinking about, oh, magic, magic, magic. But in reality, who has changed your life?
It is, and I'm so honoured to actually be saying this on the TSM podcast. It is the incredible mind of Scott Barry Kaufman. Scott is just incredible. I met Scott less than a year ago at the time of recording this, but Scott has had the most profound change on my entire life and outlook on the world around me, like more so than anything else. Honestly, you're probably not familiar with him because he's not a magician himself, but my gosh, does this man know a thing or two about a lot of things or two. Scott, for a bit of background, he's a cognitive scientist. He specialises in human potential, and he has written 9, 10 incredible books, all on a range of subjects from intelligence to creativity to transcendence. And in 2015, he was named by Business Insider as one of the 50 groundbreaking scientists that are changing the way we see the world. I mean, never mind Business Insider, I'm telling you that right now. You'll probably hear it in this episode. I was nervous as heck actually getting Scott on, and we're good at this point. We're having good conversations, but to actually bring him to you guys, we've mentioned him countless times on the podcast. Oh, you see, I'm waffling now because I'm just excited for everybody to hear all of this stuff. Genuinely fantastic discussion on so many different things.
I know. And he also, Aidan, runs the world's leading psychology podcast. And how many downloads does he have to date? How many millions of downloads does this man have to date?
I'll be honest, it's too many millions. It's ridiculous. Honestly, just buckle in. If you haven't got this already, you're going to want to really listen to this. And you'll probably use this, save this link, and because you'll be coming back to it time and time again. I know I've listened to it several times by the time this recording has actually gone live. But honestly, Scott, if by chance you are re-listening to this podcast, Scott, I really appreciate everything that you've done. But for everybody else, I think they're about to appreciate you a whole lot more. So let's get stuck straight into this incredible interview with the one and only Scott Barry Kaufman. First things first, Scott, I really appreciate that you actually are spending some time to come and have a full-on conversation with us. That really, really means a lot. But a lot of our audience, as good as it is to have you here, and as much as we've hyped you up, and we've spoken about you and your work on countless other podcasts and through our courses and things, a lot of people probably still won't actually know who you are and what it is that you actually do. So who are you, Scott? Who are you?
Well, we're all multiple things. We all contain multitudes. Some things that I enjoy doing. I enjoy understanding the mind and creativity and the depths of human potential. To what extent can people, what can people be, and how does that differ from who they currently are? I'm also interested in intelligence and IQ testing and the way that we label kids in schools and prejudge their potential before we give them a chance. Outside of psychology, I really enjoy hip-hop dancing and break dancing. Let's see, what else? Cello. I play cello, and I really like comedy. I love going to watch stand-up comedy when there's not a pandemic. I think the world needs more humor in it right now. I'm lots of things, but I just am ravenously curious at the bottom about humans.
I just love how modest you've been there, Scott. Yeah, I do these things. I'm interested in all this cool stuff. I love doing this. Can I just say that Aidan has known you for a while now, and he has been speaking about about you every single day. Oh my god, Scott's just shared something. It has blown my... He's changed me. I've evolved as a human. I guess you could say I've transcended. I have witnessed you destroy Aidan. You've literally ripped him to shreds, and he's been rebuilt and reborn as a new human. You've been so modest,
let me
and I
just-
just watch this guy just like, woof, his brain has been changed because of you, Scott. What you do is amazing.
Well, thank you, Ashley. That means a lot to me. But I just want to give Aiden a lot of credit. I mean, he's one of the best clients I've ever had. He's so smart and creative and talented himself. So I don't know how much I did other than just hold a mirror up to him so he could see who he really is.
Well, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. No, honestly, it's instrumental.
Well, I mean it. I mean it. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, like obviously, for a little bit of background for the listeners, we first came in contact through the Zero to Dangerous program with the Flow Research Collective.
That's right.
And again, you was my coach through that program, and it was honestly one of the best experiences of my entire life. Genuinely life changing. And what really struck me was from working with you, actually your wealth of knowledge on so many different things. I mean, you've written so many books at this point, across so many different subjects that. Realistically, like from people our end, in terms of the magic world, they don't even know it's possible to learn about these specific subjects. I think for us, creativity is probably the biggest thing that people are. There's so many conversations about creativity, and I think the big mindset from our perspective is that you either are creative or you're not creative. That's it.
And a lot of people in the magic community probably get hung up on the idea that they're not creative if they're going through a certain block. I feel like magicians are really hard on themselves. I feel like every magician I've ever met is like a perfectionist, and it's and so if they just go through a certain cycle where they're not they're like, oh, I'm not coming up with the newest and greatest thing, they're like, I'm not creative, I'm not a creative person. And they also, I find magicians tend to be very competitive, so they'll look at other magicians and see what someone else has come up with, and then feel defeated, as though the whole field's a zero-sum game. When I don't think creativity is a zero-sum game, because I think that creativity is something that you can manifest, that comes from your own uniqueness. And so the more you get hung up on whether or not you're not as good as someone else, then you start worrying about self-actualizing someone else's self, and then that doesn't even make sense. What does that mean to self-actualize someone else's self? You can't do that. That person couldn't do that to you.
I think that was the first one of the real standout comments that you made when we was working together initially. Actually, hearing this that phrase of I at that point I was trying to self-actualize to somebody else's success, and it was this big jarring moment of actually, oh, hang on a minute, I am me in this situation. I'm trying to copy what other people, because I don't know any different. But as a result, like there was this trap, and it's huge in the magic world. It's really quite profound. But again, is there any things that you particularly learned when you was obviously starting out with creativity? Was there any big insights or things that just stood out as a almost like a surprise when you was exploring and diving deeper into the subject?
I started out studying the field of creativity in grad school. Probably my first year in grad school. I came in there to study intelligence and traditional metrics, and then the creativity field was really exciting to me because it argued that sometimes we need to even lower our intelligence or lower our cognitive control, as the word goes, to have creativity. I thought that was an interesting sort of paradox, because we talk about intelligence often, and concentration often, as like, and self-control, is such a good, universal good thing. And I think creativity often requires a reduction in self-control, quite frankly. Spontaneity, expression, a willingness to ignore the external attentional field and go deep into your rich imagination and your inner thoughts and feelings, and really explore them and become intimate with them. That's not always the same kind of cognitive processes that you would find if you're taking an IQ test, for instance, or taking a standardized test. And sometimes those things are the opposites of each other, the kind of mindset required to do well on both.
Well, again, this is something that really fascinated me when I was learning about your approach to intelligence in and of itself. But I'm going to ask the question. You've answered it countless times everywhere. And but why are IQ tests and these traditional intelligence tests bad, or why aren't they exactly what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like they're good or bad. I mean, they're just tests. They're like a blunt tool. You know, it's like saying, is a hammer good or bad? Well, it's pretty bad if you smash an innocent person's head open with it. Sorry, that was a bit too extreme, but yeah, that'd be bad. But it's good if you fucking need a nail, hit down. That's
I
good.
love it.
So the point here, woo, that was quite a analogy. But just like an IQ test, yeah, the IQ test is pretty bad if you're using it to sort people into discrete categories in the world and prejudge their potential and say, well, if your IQ score is X number, then you're highly unlikely to do Y in life, even if you're extremely passionate and motivated to do Y and maybe even show some promise for it outside of the IQ test. It's funny, sometimes educators will stick to the IQ test as the reality and ignore other realities, and so that bothers me. But the good, the good. So what could potentially be a good use of it? Well, sometimes there are a lot of kids who are poor or in poverty and don't really. There's no other way of us seeing that they have potential. Maybe they live in an environment where there's just poor academic achievement all around them, and the standards are low, that they can't demonstrate their potential in their school system. Sometimes an IQ test can pick up potential. So I often like to say a really high IQ score is hard to get at by accident, but a low IQ score could be the result of many different sources of the forces of oppression, so to speak, that can be pushing down on someone's potential, where they're not able to show their true potential. But it's hard to like just walk into an IQ testing session and score like a 190 IQ, like, whoops, that's not testing anything real. Well, I mean, it's hard to do that by accident. Those are hard items. So does that make sense?
It really does. And this particularly brings me back to the school system and how so much I think like the school system with exams is just like broken. And especially when I got, put through school, it was very much you do the test, you get categorized, you get put in the thing, you get told you're great at this, you're not great at this, and it's like, oh, but I really want to do this. So that really like hones true to me. And I want to bring this back to magic, for example, because I know there's a lot of magicians who do things and they kind of, there are exams you do in magic, like to get into like certain magic clubs and all of that. And some people get really down if they don't pass. And in turn, outside of exams, I know people start performing and they start doing stuff. And just because of like the views of the other people in the community saying, oh, you're not doing it like this, therefore you're not good, it kind of brings them down and they kind of shy away from going out there and living up to their potential. So what would you say to people that are kind of going through that and feeling that? They know where they want to be, but everyone around them might just be saying, you're not really great in this scenario.
Yeah. Do you think magicians are really, really highly sensitive, like hair trigger sensitive to the feedback of others, right? Because their whole entire livelihood it's like comedians and magicians, you guys and gals, really, have it tough because as much as you don't want to link your performance to your self-esteem or feedback to your self-esteem, if you're getting like feedback that your work sucks, like that's gotta sting, but it's not something you need to take personally. It really isn't. I think there is a lot of unnecessary personalization going on because maybe you're not viewing the situation properly. I think the best way to frame what you're doing is as a craft, and you want to become a master of this craft, and you want to constantly push new boundaries and be creative. And once you frame it that way, you realize that throughout the course of human history, the greatest creators or any creators, the one characteristic they all share is this trial and error. ability, this ability to just realize that if they signed up for the creative life, they've signed up for failure. Like, that's as simple as that. Like, it's going to be an inevitable part of what you're doing, and that'll require lots of negative feedback. It's like any guy that's like trying to like become more attractive to women. Like, to learn the ropes. You gotta fail or be rejected by a lot of women before you realize exactly what women want. Or the kind of women you're trying to attract want, because women are obviously not all the same. but I'm on fire with my analogies today, aren't I?
I'm loving this. Honestly, this is fantastic. Yeah. So, again, this is something that's really... Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said earlier on that... I've got to keep it in there.
So that was the good way. That was the good use of the hammer.
Yeah, there you go. This is fantastic. But you said it earlier on that magicians and comedians in particular, like, there is a lot of negative feedback. And one of the things that we're really trying to work through and actually break through is something that I'm kind of obsessing over a little bit at the minute, in terms of using feedback for good, even if it is not exactly what you want to hear. But for a lot of it, it goes beyond just those surrounding people that Ashley mentioned earlier, in terms of, like, it's not just the friends and family that can often be the ones holding you back from saying going full time, for example. That's a really big one for a lot of performers. They want to turn it full time, but it's not possible. You need a real job, or all of these other crazy things that just don't seem to make sense. But it's bigger than that. Like, for us, and for me in particular, I see it as it's a community thing. The whole magic community, speaking generally here, obviously not saying every single person's the same as this, but generally speaking, the community is very, very good at holding people within certain brackets and certain thresholds, to the point that a lot of performers don't know how to challenge traditional ways of thinking. And this is something that, like, we feel right now. Like, we're challenging an awful lot of things, and this is one thing that we're trying to help and support people with. But I don't know, and again, my question really for me is sort of along the lines of, how can people become more aware that there is potentially a different side of something? How do we get out of traditional beliefs in regards to, like, the creativity and these overall things? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Tell me more about what the traditional way of thinking is.
So for a lot of, but let's put it down to tricks. For example, I think that might be the easiest way. This is an example of a trick. You have to do it like this. You can't do it any other way, because then it's not the right trick. That's huge. And as a result of that, performers believe, and magicians in particular, that this specific trick can only ever be done this way, and it can only ever be done this way with this same script, with these same mannerisms, and I have to present it exactly like David Copperfield would, or Darren Brown would do.
But that's not creativity. That's not your own unique creativity that you're bringing to the table. I mean, like, what would Aidan do? I think you need to keep asking yourself, what would Aidan do? And well, you need to know yourself first to a certain degree. There isn't one you. But you need to know what your own quirky, unique style is. I think I have a good sense of that after working with you. But I think that what you ideally want to do is create such a imprint, or like a handprint, or a snowflake. That they're like, it means something to be David Copperfield, right? What a waste, a tragic loss of potential for you to spend your life trying to do something that resembles what it means to be David Copperfield, because that means your own unique existence would be ignored. So I think you want to create something where it's like, what does it mean? People are like, oh, that's an Aiden OSullivan. Like, that's obviously an Aiden OSullivan original magic trick. For good or for better or worse, quite frankly, like, whatever, like, just like be unabashedly yourself, and try to, like, think about, what brings and amplifies your own unique style and personality. I feel like you have a very unique personality, and you're not. You're also like you're kind of like a. I'm trying to think of how I describe you, I've never actually seen you. I did see you perform a magic trick, didn't I?
Yes, the coin in hand. Yeah,
the coin in hand one.
Oh, fantastic. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you're very welcoming as a magician, and you'll definitely be the kind of magician where you have the audience like on the edge of their seat, with suspense and stuff. So I don't know. There's no easy answers here, but I think you just have to be very, very careful that you're not trying to be what already exists.
So does authenticity and creativity go hand in hand then?
Very much so. In fact, so much that I've argued that creativity is an emergent property of one's soul.
Authenticity is a big one because, like, so many people, we hear it all the time. We need to be our authentic. We have to be our authentic self, or we have to be the best possible version of ourselves. But I'm really curious, like, what does that actually mean to be your authentic version of yourself? How do we be us?
Good question. You're never, you're being right now. You're being you right now. Right. I mean, you can't help but doing anything else. But you're constantly in a state of becoming. So you're constantly in a state of becoming and realizing potentialities that you don't even realize. So in every single moment you're being, but the decisions that you make in that being are helping you become something, and you need to have as much. You can have intentionality about it, and you can have a really deep plan and a clear vision of who you want to become, and take steps to get there. A lot of people don't. A lot of people become something that then they hate. Like 10, 20 years they're down the road, they look at themselves, they're like, what the fuck have I become? Right? And a lot, right? They're, sitting there like, weighing 8,000 pounds, watching Netflix, no job on it. They're like, what? When did this happen? It's because they haven't, there was probably never a real clear vision of who they wanted to become, and a clear motivation and drive to realize that. So their being just eventually became something they didn't want to be. So I think that you really need to think it through, think through these long-term goals, long-term future image of oneself, and fall in love with that person. Paul Torrance, the creativity researcher, found that the kids who grew up to be the most creative in adulthood were the kids in elementary school who fell in love with a future image of themselves. And it was as simple as that. That was a better predictor than any standardized test score you could possibly give them in the school system.
That's amazing. What I particularly love about that, like, I've got two things really, like, to mention, and from what you've said there, I'm so glad that me and Aidan have this course for magicians, and we've laid it out with various different things. And week 1 of that course is talking all about life vision and business vision. And from what you've said there, I'm so glad that's week 1, because it is the most important thing then.
It is. Well, it's definitely up there. It's also important to eat properly.
I thought he was going to leave that at just eat at all. Like, that's also quite important. Can't forget that.
Health and exercise.
So I suppose my second question, really based off that, is, do you think that's why because I know a lot of people, magicians, regular muggles that don't do any sort of wizardry, they come out of the school system and they kind of fall out of love of learning, and they just kind of passively exist throughout life. I mean, is this why there's that important to really enjoy the process of learning, always want to learn because it's something you love, find the thing you want to learn about, pursue that, and also have that hand in hand with that learning within personal growth as well? Will this all be a benefit?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Of course. psychologists make this distinction between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and it's really important to keep calibrating why you're doing what you're doing, and how much it's connected to yourself and connected to your own enjoyment of making it a craft, as opposed to, are you just doing it because you're chasing the likes, or you're chasing the accolades and the but I imagine that a big part of being a magician too is like a part of it is the external feedback. Can't be completely intrinsically motivated. Like you just do intrinsic motivation, no one likes it, but you're like, oh, but I like it. You won't make any money. you need to please an audience. I get that.
Whoa! Oh my god, Aidan, like, this guy is insane, and I just want to take this time.
I told you so.
Honestly, it's mad, dude. I want to take this time to really just interrupt this podcast for the briefest of moments, just to really address one thing that Scott said. He mentioned something about learning. It would be silly if we didn't continue learning within ourselves, our careers, everything in general. But the problem when you want to learn in magic, all there is just new tricks, new effects. That's all there is to learn. And occasionally you find stuff which is like, oh, I could learn a bit of marketing. And when you apply it to your own career, it's a bit naff. It doesn't really work, and it doesn't do what it says on the tin. So if people actually want to learn properly how to go further within their life, their career, and how to actually thrive, where on earth do they go?
Well, I would highly recommend that anybody listening that wants to thrive and get hustle-free in your entertainment business, you head over to thriveinmagic.com. That's thriveinmagic.com. Again, the link is just in the show notes. But we want you to actually pop an application through for our 7-week elite coaching course, Learn to Thrive. Alongside all of the daily video content that you'll get over the 7 weeks, and all of the bonus community and bonus resources that you'll get as a member of the Learn to Thrive community, there's something else that's really, really important, and it shows through this episode. Scott said it from the get-go, that one of the things that he does is to simply hold a mirror up as a coach and show people their true potential. And that's exactly what we are doing in this course. Myself and Ashley, we're here to essentially be your coaches, to help guide you through the full process, not just the course, but your entertainment business overall, improving your business performance and mindset. And our job is simply to hold up the mirror and make you excel at everything that you are truly good at. Again, if you really want to find out more details or pop an application through, head over to thriveinmagic.com, and we can't wait to see you on the course.
Anyway, with that said, we will go back to the amazing episode with the genius that is Scott Barry Kaufman.
What are the aspects of it? Like, I'm curious. I'd like to ask you two, what are the aspects of being a magician that light you up the most?
Smiles. Honestly, performing to someone, if they might be a little bit just kind of stressed or a little bit meh, and they're not the happiest they could be, and when you leave them just after 5 minutes, doesn't matter about the silly little trick or what you say or do, it's the moment afterwards which is so beautiful, where they just suddenly, that gleaming glow, that gleaming smile on their face, and they're like, it's not even the wow reaction, it's just the excitement that comes from within. That, for me, is the most beautiful part.
Oh, I love that.
I think you've nailed that. Again, we're going to keep referencing the nail at this point. But from me, I like, one of the things that I really love about performing is just the simple ability. I say simple. It's the simple opportunity to get so bound in the moment and just be present in that moment, regardless of what's going on. It's just that opportunity to just let everything else sit aside and just stay in that moment. Just have that laugh, lean in like on the edge of your chair, and just enjoy that performance bit, whether that's a bit or routine, a trick, or a whole show even. Just being able to step outside of reality, almost like a level of escapism, but it's more just being there, just the present moment, like that for me. I think a lot of that comes down to what Ashley mentioned there about actually seeing that visceral response from other people and having that connection with the one person, the few people, the audience, however it is, that tying into the moment and doing it together. That for me, just, yeah, it's great.
Love it. Now it's very evident to me that both of you are intrinsically motivated by what you're doing. It's obvious, and you're choosing. Psychologists distinguish between growth goals and status goals, and those are very much growth goals. And positive, sort of like a desired there's a pro-social drive there as well. You want to positively impact someone's mental state. And you want to create an experience of alternate reality that lights people up. Those are great reasons to do it, and there should never. I think so much of this comes down to depersonalization of what you do, and I know that you are interested in the topic of imposter syndrome. The biggest reason why people have imposter syndrome is, they're neurotic, first of all. It's actually correlated strongly with the personality trait neuroticism. People with high neuroticism tend to ruminate a lot, tend to negatively ruminate, kind of constantly harp on what went wrong, and then if the slightest thing went wrong, personalizing it. Maybe there's a lot of anxiety. High anxiety is a part of it as well, imposter syndrome. But I think all of that's kind of unnecessary. I've often said the best part to lower your neuroticism score is to just stop thinking about yourself so much. And so, you keep trying different things to see what lands more or not. But keep the focus on the audience. Keep that focus. Keep the focus on what tweaks you're making, how you're changing your craft in a way that is working, and think of yourself as a creator. A creator does trial and error. That's what a creator does. Make that part of your identity. Make I am a creator more of your identity than I'm a loser, because imposter syndrome people will have I'm a loser as part of their identity. And what would you rather have? I'm a loser as your identity, or I'm a creative person?
I think side by side is pretty obvious at this point.
Loser, right?
Yeah, of course, 100%. So this is something that's really fascinating. On like imposter syndrome in and of itself, it's something it's huge in our clients in particular, and many people that we have conversations with. It's everywhere, and what you mentioned there about actually just switching that focus and putting it on something else, whether that's the craft or the audience. I think for me that's really helped me get over that and move through those hurdles, because at the end of the day I'm not being paid or I'm not being asked to perform for other performers. It's the lay people in that moment. It's the muggles or the normal people, however you want to see it. But like putting that focus and doing everything for them. I know that like Ashley's been doing a lot of virtual events and online shows, and every little change he's made in the past year has been made in favor of his audience. And it's just, I mean, I'm just going to make the comment, but it's really changed the way that he shows up to his performances. So I mean, it works, right? It really, it's being that level of focusing on the audience. Honestly, it's a game changer. But we spoke about life vision and actually having that navigation. Is that a set in stone thing? Is that something that we can plan for, maybe a 10-year vision of ourselves, and start making progress towards that, only to then realize halfway?
Well, I think it's something that can constantly be in a state of change. You don't want to ever rigidly stick to anything. You don't want to rigidly stick to your values. You don't want to rigidly stick to that future image of yourself, because, oh my gosh, like even just during COVID the past year, my own image of my future self has changed. So you really have to be open to that, and to things coming in and changing things. So I think you just need to be really deep in touch with who you're becoming. I think that's the key there, is just to always be in touch with that. Meditation can help. Journaling can help. Stepping back and reflecting. There's various paths, various potentialities that we can be actualizing at any one moment. these things don't come out of the blue. Like a lot of these negative long-term things like addictions and things, I mean, they're the result of lots of tiny little choices that were made, you know, maybe in a non-thoughtful way, you know, which then led someone to, you know, get to a point in their lives where they've become something they didn't want to become. So just think about, you know, this action, this big decision I'm making. What's the envision what the end point of it is. You know, like, is this gonna go well? Is this gonna lead well? Is this gonna lead well? There are a lot of decisions I make. I'm like, Scott, that's not gonna lead to, to anything good in the long run. Now, it was great in the moment, but come on.
So we're talking very delayed gratification kind of thing here.
Yeah. It's one way of thinking about it. But another way is that you're just choosing your future self.
So I suppose that's really coming to grips and just becoming happy with what's ahead of you then. And then when you're happy, you're more kind of content with your life in general. Is that kind of where we're going with this?
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, that,
you know, when you have hope for something, hope for a future self, you just become so energized, and you become what psychologists call approach motivation, as opposed to avoidance motivation. You're being called into the future, and so you try to chase that future. You know, that's why having a calling is so important, or feel like you have a calling in life, and it's no easy feat to have a calling, but it's usually happens when you really listen to the needs of others, and not just focus so much on yourself, but you get outside yourself in some way and transcend your being.
There you go, which is a fantastic book, by the way, if anyone wants to pick up Transcend by Scott Barry Kaufman.
You read it?
Amazing. It's on the list, and it's going to come, Scott, and I'm so excited, and I know so many magicians in our network have already ordered it, because Aidan, in every single coaching call, is like, right, if you want to get started, I'd recommend this book, because it's going to change your life as well. So 100%, if anyone's listening now, like, grab the book.
God bless
Amazing.
Aiden. God bless Aiden.
But on top of Aidan selling 1,000,001 books for you, what I particularly pick up on is you mentioned the importance of authenticity at the beginning. And now what it sounds to me like authenticity within the future and what you're becoming. But I come back to this, as of the time of recording this morning, Aidan, we was chatting with someone, and he really said he knows he needs to break free. He knows he needs to stop kind of being like everyone else and find his unique thing and just be him. And he was saying to us, how? And he was really, really struggling to find that authentic self within. He was really struggling to find himself in that moment. And although he was looking for it, although he knew kind of like where he was coming to grips with kind of his future vision, it all came back to, who am I? So for the people listening who have gone through this episode now, Scott, thinking this is great, but how do I know who I am? Where would they start?
Well, that's just the wrong question. Because you'll never know. People want to know something that's unknowable. A much better question is, which potentialities within me do I most wish to self-actualize? You know, it's a fool's errand to spend your whole life trying to discover who you are. You know, there's so many different sub-selves, as psychologists call them. You know, there's the kind of self, you know, that you become when you're triggered by, you know, like jealousy, for instance, you know, like, or you're triggered by there's the kind of self you become, you know, just there's so many different sides, environmental stimuluses that bring out different evolutionary drives in us, you know. But trying to think to yourself, well, like, I see within me that there's this real interest in magic, and it's for some reason beyond outside of my comprehension, it resonates with me. And so therefore I'm going to spend my time actualizing those potentialities, and just stop worrying about who you are. You know, we don't have free will. Just to drop that right there. So it doesn't matter. Of knowing, because you never know. There's like who we are is, and all the different sides of ourselves are the result of a long chain of causes going back to the Big Bang, right? It's a fool's errand to try to figure out why do I like pizza? Why do I like women with red hair? Why do I like, you could keep, there's so many factors that have caused that to be the case, that you never know, and then you'll never know, you'll never know, like, all the sides, all those aspects of who you are, right? So and there's no one aspect, there's no one who you are. What a lot of people mean by that, who am I, is they want to know, what is my highest potential. That's really what they want to know. So let's just double click on that. Is that fair?
So how do they find their highest potential then? Where would they go now that they know that? Where would they go from there?
Well, you don't find it, you develop it. And it starts with the seeds of passion. It starts with the seeds of this intrinsic motivating feeling that or curiosity or interest in something. You don't have the highest, no one has their highest potential fully formed. Michael Jordan didn't pop out dunking from the free throw line, when he was born. He didn't, you know what I'm saying? Imagine that visual, that, like, that was something he really had to develop. And, so I think so much of this is just like thinking about it in the right way that's more productive.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then that comes back to learning, and obviously that self-development, wanting to grow as a person. But do you think kind of creative visualization, and you mentioned obviously meditation, but do you think creative visualization and future envisioning is really important for people to go through and do as part of this?
Do it constantly doing these kinds of visualization meditations can be super important. But yeah, I think there's other ways of moving towards your future self, and they can operate within the structures of conversations with friends. It doesn't have to be a solitary endeavor. You two seem like friends to me. You two seem like, how can each of you kind of take turns saying what they see as someone's highest potential? Because sometimes we have our own blind spots. I think it's just, don't leave it all up to yourself. Sometimes that's why it's good having a coach. Someone that can kind of see your highest potential in a way that you may not have even realized. That happened to me. I was in special ed as a kid. I had a learning disability. I was probably ADD up the kazoo, and as you can see even in this interview, having trouble concentrating. No, I'm joking. But you see, when I was a kid, I had a teacher who took me aside in 9th grade and was like, what are you doing here? I think that you're capable of more, and it changed my life.
Well, I love that. I love that that's all coming around full circle, and actually what you said there about actually having somebody else, whether that's a coach or a friend or just somebody that you're really close with, to be able to hold up that mirror and show you that highest potential, that's the game-changing level. Are there things that we should look for? I mean, for me, it was very much a case when we met. It was very much a case of I was going through Zero to Dangerous, and we met through that program there as a bunch of decisions that ended up us coming together and actually having that opportunity there. But if we wasn't to go through this in a coaching situation, and we was going to look at this in a more everyday life situation with friends, family, and things, should we look at the existing relationships that we've got, or do you think it's easier to look for new relationships?
Yeah, but also, there you can have toxic people in your life. I hate to say it. You can have people who are not only. Like, do you have certain people where when you talk to them, you feel like they're not looking at your highest potential? It's amazing how we can be different people under different social situations, and as well as we can feel like different people. That's why it's very important to say, like, don't say like, who am I? Because that doesn't really, we're so. It depends so much on different environmental triggers, who we are. If you're an environment where you feel threatened, you feel like people, let's say you're in a room full of like the Society for, like, anti-magicians, and you're at one of their meetings, you're not gonna feel like they're seeing your highest potential. You're gonna go in threat mode. So seek out, surround yourself with the best, with the people who will that you feel like your highest potential is being seen. Yeah.
I think the quality of relationships is something that I've really learned from you, and through Transcend in particular. Actually, the importance of having those good quality relationships, and exercising the control of actually being able to look at the existing relationships and understand and make adjustments, to say the least, to actually to put that into the perspective of like having those good quality relationships to help see those blind spots and help each other see those blind spots. I think Keith Ferrazzi actually talks about this in the networking context, when he talks about recontracting friendships, actually being able to commit to going higher together through that co-elevation process, and actually set it out almost like a contract in that sense, like something that me and Ashley did. Like, we recontracted our friendship when we set up the Successful Mentalist as a company, as an entity, so that we could look out for each other's blind spots and look out for any strengths, weaknesses, and just use those to our highest potential. I think that's been a game changer, I think.
I love it. This podcast sounds great. You guys put together.
There we go. Well, we've got a quotable review there. This podcast is great. Scott Barry Kaufman.
I said it sounds great.
It sounds good. There you go. There we go.
Don't magician my quote.
I tried, Scott. I tried my hardest there, but it didn't get past a genius. God dang it.
Who are? Tell me more about this podcast. So magicians listen to it?
So we've got magicians, mentalists, entertainers from all across the world. I think we've got people. Literally, we checked this morning. We have 87 countries on the list.
Wow!
Which is amazing. Honestly, it's bizarre. Like, so there are countries on this list that we've not even heard of, but yeah, they're tuning in from everywhere to listen and learn. And again, we're operating on those 4 pillars: business, mindset, performance, and health. And we're nailing those 4 with our audience. And if they can transform even just one area of the 4, or one element of one area of the 4, then we're already doing our job to improve the quality of life for all magicians.
So cool. Yeah.
Well, that's why we put it together, because I know that in the community in general, everyone just focuses on kind of the tricks or business, but no one focuses on kind of what's going on up here. Everything else, and especially what you've spoken about today. And that's why we want to be a change maker within the industry, and that's why we've put this together, and we've got like a plethora of different resources to help people, and as Aidan said there, change people's lives, get them living the life that they want to live.
Love it.
Fantastic.
I love it.
Well, Scott, as we're coming up to the end of this conversation, I'm going to ask the question that I don't particularly like in podcast interviews, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Uh-oh.
Is there anything that we should have asked you that we didn't? I noticed the awkward silence as they're racking their brains. This is why I don't like it. This is the first time I tried asking the question, and I knew it was going to happen, Scott. I knew it.
The tumbleweed of silence.
I just hope it was of value to you. There's nothing, there was nothing that I wanted to say. I just wanted to be able to answer any questions you had. So I feel like I'm the one that should ask you that question. I'm trying to give you value. Is there anything that I didn't say that you wanted me to say?
There is one. And
yes.
Is it all right if I bring it up, Scott? Very quickly at the end.
Of course.
Look, here's the thing. Magicians, we've already mentioned it, they're so focused on tricks and business, and they never really think about performance. They never really think about how they think, and sometimes they do get stuck in that rut. And I know me personally, everything you've said, I really resonate with that, especially getting categorized and labeled. Like, being autistic, like I identify that quite a bit, especially, as you're going through. And I know a lot of magicians also have this problem. And they kind of get restricted with how they think. And no one's talking about it. But the information you share is amazing. So my question to you is, all the magicians that are listening right now, where can they go to find your amazing stuff? And where can they go to purchase everything that you've ever put out there? And where can they go to learn from you?
Oh, that's really kind of you. So I put everything up at scottbarrykaufman.com. I have a podcast called the Psychology Podcast, and actually just I haven't announced it yet, but I'm starting a new center. I'm starting a new center. The center. Well, I won't even tell you what the name of it is, but I almost did. You'd be the only ones. But I'm starting a new center that will have all sorts of course offerings and coaching options, and you can choose various coaches and stuff. But I want to be a real hub for helping with the science of human potential is what I really care about. So. But scottbarrykaufman.com, you'll be able to find all of that. Thanks for asking. Thanks, I appreciate that. I really enjoyed talking to you two today. I feel like you're both really just well-meaning and really highly creative individuals, and I think that's a great combination.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. It's been so eye-opening, so insightful, and I particularly love taking guests on a podcast for magicians that aren't magicians, the people which are the real game changers in the world, which are disrupting kind of society and offering new ways of thinking, and obviously a couple of awesome courses which will help with that as well.
Thank you. All the best to you guys.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Scott. It's been amazing.
And after countless TSM podcast plugs in the past and across our private social media and in every conversation that I ever have with people, we have finally got Scott on the platform, on the podcast, and honestly, it was such a good conversation. I'm still excited now, and I'll be honest, we're recording this outro completely at a different time from actually recording Scott's episode. I'm still so excited, and I hope that you guys got as much value from this conversation as we did. Ashley, I'm so excited.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was just one which was so eye-opening, so just it really changes the way you think about life in general and the world and everything. Scott is an absolute genius in his own right, and I think that's why he runs the #1 psychology podcast within the world. That's why he guests on some of the biggest podcasts in the world, and the fact that he come on a magic podcast with us, it truly does mean a lot. I know I've taken a lot from this. I really hope you guys have taken a lot from this. And I think it's going to be one of those podcasts, Aidan, that I'm just going to have to listen back to time and time again, because there's just too much to actually take away in one listen. There's so much advice shared, mainly because the man is an absolute genius.
Honestly, as I said, I've known Scott for less than a year, and he's changed my life in so many ways, more than I'll ever be able to thank him for. But honestly, please go and listen to the Psychology podcast. Go and listen to a bunch of the episodes there. Scott's doing an incredible job over there. But please, if you haven't already taken an opportunity to go and buy his latest book, Transcend, The New Science of Self-Actualization, please do that immediately. Not only is it perhaps one of the most interesting and fascinating reads, but it genuinely will show you more about yourself than ever possible. Please just go and get that book, follow Scott and support Scott, and again, save this episode link, because you're going to want to listen to it again time and time and time and time and time and time and time again, until by that point hopefully we'll have Scott on for another episode, and then even better, like win-win. I'm just so excited. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm gonna shut up now because I'm excited about this.
He really is excited, and honestly, words cannot explain it. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I just want to say, guys, if you did enjoy this podcast, and if you want to get and see more incredible guests just like Scott or anyone else, then we need your support. Let us know, first of all, who you'd like to see on the TSM podcast, and if you want to support us, and it would just be really nice for us to see as well, leave a little review below. We'd love to see exactly what your thoughts are, your good, honest thoughts. And heck, if you could even go the extra mile and share the TSM podcast with your friends across the globe, wow, you'd be supporting our mission to really help and support and change the lives of every single magician across the globe, and that would honestly mean the world. But that's enough from me, enough from Aidan. I'm gonna let him be quiet now, because otherwise he's continue fangirling for the rest of hours and hours and hours to come. Thank you for listening, guys. My name's been Ashley Green, Aiden OSullivan, and of course, this episode has been with none other than the absolute genius, Scott Barry Kaufman.